Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar. Tonight, we are talking about government benefits and distributions from a special needs trust and ABLE accounts. I'm Hannah Satterwhite. I'm a navigator with the Family Supports team at the ARC. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our presenter, Casey Stevens. Thanks for being here, Casey.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank everybody who is logging on or watching later for joining us this evening, spending this hour and a half or so with me. We are going to go and jump right in. So again, my name is Casey Stevens and I'm with Midwest Special Needs Trust. This evening, we are going to talk about quite a bit. So get your notepads out, get your pens out. We're going to cover government benefits. We're going to cover special needs trust, ABLE accounts, and then we're going to talk about special needs trust, ABLE accounts, and those distributions, how they can work together and how they work separately. So to get started, we are going to talk about government benefits. And I don't know how many have attended different sessions that the St. Louis ARC has put on, different kinds of webinars, different workshops. And so maybe you've had an introduction to this. We're going to dive a little bit deeper, hopefully, this evening and talk about the different kinds and what they mean and what they can do, as well as income and asset limits for both. So there are two kinds of government benefits. You may have also heard them called public benefits. So two kinds of public benefits, two kinds of government benefits. One is means tested and one is not means tested. So we're going to go over the means tested first. Means tested means that the benefit is based on the individual's income and assets. So if we were in class and I was teaching a class and we were all in person, I would say, underline the word income and assets, right? That is the important piece. When we are looking at government benefits that are means tested, they are looking at an individual's income and assets. Means tested benefits include SSI, which is supplemental security income, Medicaid, including all waiver services, HUD housing or Section 8, and food stamps. So when we talk about public benefits that are means tested, those are the four programs that I'm talking about. These are the programs that are going to look at somebody's income and assets. When we talk about government programs that are not means tested, these are entitlements. These are things that are based on an individual's work history or someone else's work history. So maybe somebody worked until they were 30 and could no longer work. They need to file for their Social Security, right? They can do that, and that's called Social Security Disability Insurance, or their SSDI. And Medicare is also not means tested. So Medicare comes with SSDI after 24 months. We have means tested, which is SSI, Medicaid, HUD housing, and food stamps. And we have entitlements, which are not means tested, and that's SSDI and Medicare. So those are the two programs. Now, when we talk tonight, when we talk about special needs trust and we talk about ABLE accounts, our primary concern is going to be those that are means tested. They're going to be those that are looking at somebody's income and assets. And when I say income and assets, what do I mean? Right? Income is the amount a person receives each month. This can be wages, Social Security benefits, and even housing can be considered income. So income is what is being received each month. Assets are the amount a person has saved each month. So this is checking accounts, saving accounts, and even personal property. So we're Social Security and Medicaid are saying, how much do you own? How much do you own at the end of the month or at the beginning of the month? How much do you receive during the month? So income and assets. Unfortunately, and fortunately, I guess, Social Security and Medicaid have different rules. So here in Missouri, these rules different for SSI and Medicaid. For SSI, somebody needs to receive less than $15.50 a month in earned income to qualify for SSI. So that's the first test. How much money do they make? And how much in assets do they have? Right? So Social Security says you cannot be making more than this amount, and you cannot have more than $2,000 in total assets. And you'll see some exclusions may apply, right? We're going to talk about what those exclusions are later this evening, but that does include a special needs trust, an ABLE account, a vehicle, and a home. So for Social Security, for SSI, which we talked about as a means tested program, you not only have to be considered disabled, but they're also going to look at your income or their income and total assets. So for SSI, our asset limit is $2,000. On the other hand, we have Medicaid. Medicaid is less than 12,801, and I'm sorry, that's a year, I apologize, in income. And assets are less than 5,909 in total assets. So income, you still have to receive less than about $1,000 a month, right at 1,000, and have less than 5,909 in total assets. So the difference in the two programs kind of varies, right? So we want to make sure that if our loved one, the individual with a disability is trying to qualify for SSI, that we use the SSI rules. We want to make sure that we're not applying Medicaid rules to SSI and SSI rules to Medicaid, because they're very different in what those programs rules are. And again, I say in the assets under Medicaid, some exclusions may apply, right? We want to make sure that if we need to qualify for SSI, we have less than $2,000 in total assets. If we need to qualify for Medicaid, we need to make sure we have less than $5,909 in total assets. And that amount moves up every July. Years and years ago, if you've been around for a long time, like I have, you'll remember when it was $999. And so we can see how far Missouri Medicaid has come in increasing their asset limit by quite a bit, almost $5,000, which allows for more people to qualify. It gives a higher threshold of assets that folks can have. So I want to take just a few moments and ask Ms. Hannah to answer any questions that we have about government benefits. So I want to make sure that everybody is with me on what the two programs are that we'll primarily be discussing, and the public benefits or the government benefits that are means tested.
Absolutely. So we did have a few pre-submitted questions.
Okay.
So what is the impact of SSI and Medicaid under the new administration?
So that is a question I can't answer because I don't know what their new rules are going to be. So for right now, we want to be concerned with what the rules are at this very moment, because that is what is going to be followed. Any new rules that are issued wouldn't have an impact until at least the new fiscal year, if not further down the road. But good question. I just want to make sure, because we talk about, I don't define it anymore. Right. So I don't define what public benefits are. When I move on, I'm going to assume that we absorbed all of the knowledge and that we understand what the two programs are that we are primarily looking at. So
We just had a couple more come in just right as we were talking. So
no, that's great.
So can someone collect SSI and SSDI at the same time?
Absolutely. So Social Security is going to say you receive this much in your SSDI, and either that amount is going to be over the federal benefit rate, which right now is $943, or they're going to say it's under, we have to pay you just a little bit more. They're going to supplement your SSDI with SSI. So you can receive both. Somebody can receive both SSI and SSDI. Yes, good question.
And someone else asks, does SSDI count as income for Medicaid?
Yes, yes.
Is SSI and SSDI solvent? We keep hearing that Social Security will run out of funds.
Yeah, and I get the question a lot, and I wish I could answer as a solid yes or no. But what I know is that it is there for us now, and it is there for individuals who need it, and so we need to be utilizing those benefits. But then in addition, as we talk about this evening, the importance of planning, we also need to plan for our loved ones with disabilities to supplement whatever income sources they have, so that if programs do go away or they are no longer available or the rules change, there is another source to utilize for their needs. But I don't have a solid answer for that. I wish I did. Right now I know that they're available and that the rules haven't changed. So we're going to use them and administer the way that we need to keep our benefits the way that they are. So good questions.
Thank you. And we have
Yeah.
had a couple more
Okay.
come in. So
Yeah,
thank you all for engaging
absolutely.
with the Q&A. So someone asks, my daughter gets benefits from a parent retirement account.
Mhm.
Are there any limits? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think I understand the question.
Okay.
So, oh, so she has some kind of annuity. I'm just assuming she gets some kind of payment from a retirement account.
I
Though
think it
that is considered income. And Social Security will look at that when determining, does she qualify for SSI or not. Medicaid will also look at that, to determine if she qualifies for Medicaid. So all sources of income are looked at.
does sheltered workshop earnings count as income for Medicaid eligibility?
Yes, yes. All income sources, sheltered workshop earnings, maybe big, maybe small, but still count as income to the recipient. Yep.
So this is a specific question to kind of a personal situation. So I know you may or may not be able to get into it, but
Okay.
I'll read the basics. We have concerns that the government back paid over 2K to our daughter's account without notification. We
Mhm,
discovered this situation 3 weeks later and immediately transferred the funds out of her account,
mhm,
which receives the funds.
mhm.
And then they were penalized in the past for over 2K in their account for just over a month and had to pay that back. So, is there a way to proactively address this back pay
Yeah.
that was in the account?
Yeah. So when Social Security sends you a back payment, you actually have 9 months to spend those funds. So if you get a back payment from Social Security, they're not going to count it as income or an asset. They're not going to count it as an asset for 9 months. So you can be relieved there. But Medicaid doesn't have that exemption rule. Medicaid is going to say, well, you have income and you have an asset. So you do want to utilize those funds within the month that you receive them. And so there are ways to do that. We'll talk about Enable account. We'll talk about a special needs trust. There are also other options, just purchasing items or services that she may need. But if you think that a back payment is coming or you've received that letter from Social Security that talks about a back payment, you want to start making plans for what that's going to be used for when you get that letter. I know that you don't always get much notice. I mean, it sounds like in this instance, you didn't get any notice. But you want to make sure that you kind of have a plan for if extra funds are received. And I think the next two items that we'll talk about may solve some of those problems for you. Okay, so we're going to move on from government benefits. If we walk away with anything this evening from government benefits, we're going to walk away knowing that there are two types. There are means tested and there are entitlements. And means tested is SSI, Medicaid, food stamps, and HUD housing. And entitlements is SSDI and Medicare. So now we're going to talk a little bit or a lot of it about special needs trust. And again, you may have heard me over the years or other folks talk about special needs trust, or this may be your very first time and I'm saying kind of a foreign language. I'm hoping that I'm able to break it down for you, and that you walk away with knowing we need to at least think about this, right? So special needs trusts are a financial planning tool. They are utilized for supplemental needs, not basic support. And we'll go into at the end of this presentation what the difference between a supplemental need and a basic support is. Special needs trusts are governed by trust language. And then there are also federal laws and state laws that govern special needs trust as well. And the most important thing that we are going to walk away with this evening, if I say anything else, let's highlight this. Break out those highlighters, get out those pieces of paper. Considered an exempt asset for SSI, Medicaid, food stamps, and HUD housing. We just talked about how important those benefits are, right? What is income? What's an asset? And so now we know that a special needs trust is considered an exempt asset. That means that if the trust is written really well and it makes allowable distributions, it is not going to count as an asset for your loved one, for the individual with a disability. It is going to be able to be utilized, to be administered for their benefit. Attorneys, banks, pooled trust options. I'm a pooled trust, which is kind of an overly complicated word to say that I'm a nonprofit trustee, are all options for special needs trusts. So again, if we walk away with anything from this evening, we are walking away with it is considered an exempt asset for SSI, Medicaid, food stamps, and HUD housing. There are 3 kinds of special needs trusts. We have first party, also called self-settled. We have third party, and we have inactive. And we're going to go through what the 3 of those are. A first party trust, or also called a self-settled trust, is established by the individual with a disability, grandparents, guardian, or the court, and first party trusts are funded with the individual's own money. So first party trusts are funded with the beneficiary's own money. What is the source of those funds? Whether they have it in a bank account, or they received it in a personal injury settlement, or grandma and grandpa didn't get a chance to hear me speak. They didn't know they were supposed to plan, right? So they left Johnny is the example I'm going to use. They left Johnny money in his name, and Johnny's on SSI, and the panic starts setting in, right? Social Security says, oh, Johnny, you had that income, you have that asset. What are you going to do about it? You're going to lose your SSI. Johnny can put that into a first party special needs trust. There are other types of source of funds. So Social Security back payments, unplanned inheritances, lawsuits or settlements. We also see it when folks are trying to qualify for Medicaid and SSI. They never needed to qualify before, and now they do. A special needs trust may be an option in that way. First party trusts are irrevocable, meaning once they are set up, they cannot be changed. They cannot be closed. They can't be edited. They can be amended to meet the requirements of the Social Security and Medicaid, but they can't be closed because you got mad at the trustee, right? So first party trusts are irrevocable, and they also require a Medicaid payback provision. So Medicaid says, Johnny, you can have these funds in this special needs trust. It's going to be well written. It's going to follow all the rules, and you get to have it for your supplemental needs. That's wonderful. That's great. However, when you pass away, the remainder funds in that trust must be paid back to Medicaid for the services we provided while you were living. So Medicaid says you can have this trust during your lifetime. It is available for your supplemental needs. However, when you pass away, the assets in the trust must be paid back to Medicaid. So when we learn about first party trusts, the 2 things we want to take away are it is funded with the beneficiary's assets, so the beneficiary's funds, and it requires Medicaid payback. if we're going to highlight, underline, circle anything in our notes, it is established with the beneficiary's assets and requires Medicaid payback. As a contrast, we have third-party trusts. So a third-party trust is established by a donor, not the individual with a disability. These are with the donor's assets. So mom and dad, they heard me speak. They said, oh, we need that. I want to go talk to her, right? We need to plan for Johnny. And they set up a third-party trust. Great, wonderful. Grandma and grandpa, they said, oh, we want to give too. We want to put it in that third-party trust. Wonderful. Those are third-party funds. Those are funds that are not belonging to Johnny. These include personal funds of the donor, life insurance policies, and wills, and some estates if directed to go to the to a special needs trust. So when we talk about that, when we talk about life insurance policies, what a wonderful legacy you can leave for your loved ones, right? But when you're filling out those documents and it says, oh, I need to list my beneficiaries. And so you list Janie and you list Johnny and you list James, right? Janie, Johnny, and James. And Johnny has a disability. He's going to need his SSI and his Medicaid to help take care of him. If you leave those funds to Johnny in your life insurance, that impacts his eligibility for his public benefits, right? That impacts his eligibility for Medicaid and SSI, and he will have to likely open a first party trust. But if you say Johnny Special Needs Trust, and James, then Johnny's public benefits are protected. They are, those funds from the life insurance are going to go directly into the Special Needs Trust. And they're going to bypass Johnny completely. They're going to be in that trust that is so well written, that is going to be administered correctly. It's going to be used for his supplemental needs, and none of his benefits are going to be impacted. Right. So the important part of planning is not only just having a special needs trust, but knowing where the funds that funds are going to go into it. Right. We can't list Johnny and then assume they make their way to the special needs trust. We need to say Johnny's special needs trust. So third party trusts can be revocable or irrevocable. And the other big piece of a third party trust, the takeaway that we're going to talk about, is a third party trust has no Medicaid payback. So we talked about a first party, right? And we said, oh, Medicaid says you can have this while you're living, but at the end it goes back to them. Third party, there's no Medicaid payback. Those funds never belong to Johnny, right? They bypassed him. So Medicaid doesn't get to claim them at Johnny's death. At Johnny's death, the assets in the trust are distributed how the donor wants, right? Donors can leave it to their other family members. They can leave it to other nonprofits. They can leave it to whomever they want, because there's no Medicaid payback. So if we're using our highlighters, we're getting out our pens and our papers, and we're taking away two things from our third party slide. We're taking away that it is the donor's assets and that there is no Medicaid payback. Right? So funded by somebody other than the individual with a disability, and Medicaid does not claim any at the end. So those are the primary two types of special needs trust, right? We have first party, that's Johnny's money. We have third party, that's mom and dad's money. And those are our options. And now we're going to talk just a few minutes about how we plan for that. Right, so we have what's called an inactive trust. You may also hear it called a seed trust. It's a trust that is written well before parents pass away. They're really planning, right? But we don't always know what happens tomorrow. We don't know what happens next week. And so we want to make sure our plan is in place. So an inactive trust is established by the parents or grandparents or friends or family or whomever, with typically life insurance policies. And the inactive trust is not going to get funded until the donors pass away. So right now, all of the paperwork is done. The inactive is set up. Everything is good to go. And the life insurance is going to feed that inactive trust, and it's going to be available as a third party trust for Johnny. But the cost to set it up is so significantly lower than setting up a third party trust right now that is fully funded, right? So it is a low cost option for planning with a loved one with a disability. If we're saying, oh, I'm not real sure what I'm gonna do. I heard this woman speak one time about special needs trust. It keeps coming up in the webinars. I keeps coming up on the Facebook pages, but do I really need one? The inactive option is a great way to kind of test the waters, right? You're learning a little bit about how special needs trust can work. The documents are already filled out. Everything is in order, and you can decide maybe 5 or 10 or 15 years down the line that maybe it's no longer needed, or maybe you need to fund it now because Johnny's life is very, very different than it was 15 years ago. So an inactive trust is an option that I recommend for a lot of families that are kind of in that pre-planning mode. They want to get all the paperwork ready. They want to get everything ready. And they can do that by opening an inactive. Typically an inactive, I get this question, so I'm hoping that it hasn't been asked yet. Typically an inactive trust is a third party trust, right? The parents are pre-planning. They are putting funds or will be putting funds into the trust. And so with an inactive trust, there is no Medicaid payback, right? Because it's somebody else's funds other than Johnny's. So before I take some questions, I just want to review really quick. We have our first party trust. These are Johnny's funds. He received a fairly large Social Security back payment. Okay, we got to do something with that, right? Social Security says you have 9 months, but Medicaid says you got to do it right now. What are we going to do? We can open a first party trust with Johnny's funds from Social Security, from his back payment, administer it, have it beautifully written, well written, administered well. Social Security says it's great. Medicaid says it's great. And then Johnny passes away. Medicaid says, oh, that's ours now, right? That's ours. We let Johnny have that while he was living. So we're going to require a payback at his death. Then we have our third party option, which includes the inactive, right? Our third party is that pre-planning. We're getting things ready for Johnny. We're letting Janie and James know what we want to do. We're letting our life insurance know this is going to Johnny's special needs trust, right? So this is somebody else's funds for the benefit of Johnny. So donor funds, and there's no Medicaid payback at the end. They were never Johnny's funds. They bypassed them. They said, oh, going around, right? So Medicaid doesn't get to claim it. And at the end of that third party, it goes to whomever the donors want, whether that be family or nonprofits. I've written checks to orchestras, to police departments, to schools, whoever the donor wants to leave money to, they can do that through a third party trust after Johnny passes. So before we go, I know I covered quite a bit of special needs trust in a very, very short time. So want to stop and answer any questions that folks may have.
Someone says our daughter has a first party special needs trust. Are we allowed to move any money from this special needs trust to an ABLE account to minimize potential payback to Medicaid?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to cover ABLE account, so I don't want to jump in too much, but ABLE account has a Medicaid payback clause as well.
If funds from an inherited IRA are sent to a special needs trust, are they taxable? Are there other limitations?
So I am no tax accountant. I am no attorney. I have sat through a good portion of the Secure Act 2.0 presentations, webinars, and the such. What I can tell you is that is a better question to give us a call about. A special needs trust can hold an inherited IRA. So you can have an inherited IRA within a special needs trust, which can reduce the tax implications. And then the trust would pay those taxes. But you definitely want to talk to somebody kind of on an offline situation about that specifically.
Can you transfer funds from a special needs trust to open an ABLE account, which is a similar question.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can do that from a first party or a third party.
Someone said, what if there is a huge back pay check and an inheritance from grandma, only that back pay should go back to Medicaid, but not grandma's money?
So it depends. Did grandma leave it directly to Johnny or did she leave it in a special needs trust? So that's why we need to talk to grandma now and find out what her plans are. So the back payment would need to go to a first party trust and grandma's money we need to know who she left it to directly. So if grandma left it in a third party trust or left it to a third party trust, then it wouldn't have Medicaid. Okay.
Are multiple trusts normal? This is from the grandma scenario.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I actually had this question today as well. Johnny can have a first party trust and he can have as many third party trusts that are needed. So if mom and dad want to have a special needs trust for Johnny and then grandma and grandpa on one side and aunt and uncle on the other side, if they all want to have different special needs trusts for Johnny because they have different people they want to leave money to after Johnny passes away, that's fine. That's fine. If they want to combine their money and list remainder beneficiaries in one document, that's great too, but there's no limit on the number of special needs trusts you can have. It's a little challenging, but there's no limit.
So someone else says, how soon after death do the funds in the first party trust become inaccessible?
Immediately.
Okay.
Immediately. So Social Security, and we'll talk about distributions, but Social Security says that trust, when the beneficiary dies, is no longer accessible for any distributions except for the very short list provided here. So it's immediate. That trust cuts off when the beneficiary passes.
Can third party special needs trust funds be spent intermittently over the years when they're needed?
Absolutely. I actually make the same recommendation for first party. So utilize the funds when needed, for sure.
Okay, a few more.
Yeah.
Someone already has an ABLE account set up and has put in some funds in 2024 to keep the checking account money to stay under $750 per month, since they get HSA money, and dental monthly insurance premiums as a benefit. Is this a good way to keep these funds in the account low enough using an ABLE account? And I guess that's sort of an ABLE account, not special needs trust question, but
I'm going to give you yes, it is a better use of an ABLE account than it would be for a special needs trust.
are taxes owed on all kinds of trusts?
Yes. So, again, I'm no tax expert. I know just enough to be dangerous, right? And so, I have been administering special needs trust for 13 years now and can tell you that, yes, a special needs trust is taxable. The assets in the trust, the income to the trust are taxable, and then, there are tax documents sent, every tax year to the donor for their personal taxes. And if you have a specific tax question, I'm happy to answer it. I will tell you that our website in just a few weeks will have some more information about taxes because it is almost tax season. So you may want to check our website on that as well.
This person asks if divorced parents could each have their own third-party trust.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yep. So it just as a quick refresher of what we've talked about this evening. Right. So we talked about public benefits. We talked about government benefits and what a means tested benefit versus a non-means tested, right? And so with our means tested benefits are SSI, Medicaid, food stamps, and HUD housing. And then we talked about the three types or essentially the two types of special needs trust because that inactive can be a piece of another one. So we have first party, right? First party trusts are going to protect that public benefit of Medicaid, SSI, food stamps, and HUD housing. That's our big takeaway for this evening. And our first party trust is funded by Johnny with his money and has a Medicaid payback provision. And then on the other side, we have our third party trust, which is funded by somebody other than Johnny and does not have a Medicaid payback provision. Both the first and third party trusts If properly written, beautifully written trust, properly administered, all of the distributions are correct. Social Security and Medicaid are going to say, yep, these are wonderful. An exempt asset for our public benefits, right? They're going to say you can have Medicaid and SSI, even though you have these special needs trusts. So that's our takeaway, right? We have our public benefits. We're trying to protect them because we need those benefits. Johnny needs those benefits. And so we can do that by utilizing a special needs trust. There is an alternative. And so our next few slides are going to be about the ABLE account.